one could think that from a biological standpoint, this idea of queerness and queering sounds incredibly cultural, and that biology would come with a lot of substantial, typically biological laws and polarities. But actually, the contrary is the case. So you could say ecology actually is queer theory. It's embodied queer theory. Only that a certain stream in biological thinking, which emphasizes sovereignty and struggle and cuts out the agents from their living connections to all of the living world, doesn't see this so much. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about how living beings are constantly queering identities. And I also want to talk a little bit about queerness proper, the wild mix of sexuality in biology. And I'll just give you just some points. So another bracket of this, of what I'm going to say, or what I want to say, is that I think that the embodied world, the world of the flesh, the biological reciprocity we're part of, everything, every being, every agent, every happening in this living cosmos is part of, is never part of a binary. It is always something in between, or it is always paradoxically transforming binaries into differences. So this might sound a little bit abstract, but it's important to see that the idea of polar opposite, of binary, is something which has grown out of a certain development of cultural history of the West, but it's not supported by life. Well, life is supporting something very different. So what is life? You need to start thinking about this to get to the basic queerness. And people are always taking a deep breath when I say, okay, now I'm talking a little bit about what is life, because it seems such a crazy question. And it seems such a crazy question because people don't really think about this. What is actually life? So in life, we have matter, and we have the desire to keep this matter together. And that's what is inside of all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean all living organisms. So in life, we have a tendency to carry on and to keep ourselves somehow closed and somehow in unfolding, in expansion, in wholeness. And this happens on matter. And the crazy thing is that matter is not identical with this living center we are actually knowing. We know we are, we feel we are. Matter is not a substantial substance, a substantial basis of living identity, because matter is that which always passes through living beings. It's actually very simple, but it's something, and it's nothing which is somehow from outside of science. It's completely part of empirical science, but it's something which is somehow in the shadow of scientific thinking, because it doesn't really fit. So just to give you a very simple example of this, while we sit here together, we are all breathing together. While you're breathing, you're splitting off parts of your body in the form of CO2 and giving it to the air. So you're somehow losing your body all the time while you're breathing. That's how your body works. And these parts of your body are going into the atmosphere in this huge commons of living, breathing beings, and are feeding other beings, namely the plants, who relish on CO2, as you know, and they build their flesh from CO2. And then in order to get our body back together, we need to eat, and we eat, in the end, the bodies of plants, maybe mediated through a food chain. So you see, we have an exchange of bodily substance. So our body is not our identity. Whatever you do with your body in order to show that your body is you, your body is changing. Your body is not your identity. Your body is shared with every other living being. So we are one huge togetherness. Lichen is in the title of the session today. So you could say the same principle according to which in lichens, fungi and algae are living together is characterizing our combined togetherness of all living beings. And on the grounds of this sharing, we build our identities as the striving, the desiring to keep on as subjects. So we can only be subjects because we are queering our identities on a biological level. There's nothing permanent, there's nothing substantial, there's nothing fixed. So that is one point. And now let me come from identity queerness to sexual queerness in biology. And let me show you first a diagram. It's very illustrative and it's also funny. And it's the life cycle or the various life cycles of a little multicellular animal, which you can find, for example, in water in a vase with plants, which you forgot. So this is the rotifer, the famous rotifer. You can see it there. It's looking relatively strange. It's this sort of ton with a little sort of head, which it can protrude. And it feeds on little detritus and algae. It's very small, it's microscopic, but it's multicellular. So it's a real animal. And this rotifer has various ways of reproduction, which have all sorts of forms of sexuality. So on the left hand, you see the asexual cycle. So they can just bud. They produce eggs, and then these eggs make new rotifers. It's like strawberries, creating little strawberries without seeds. But then they can also have sexual reproduction. And you see, sexual reproduction happens through females creating males from themselves. So they just create males from themselves with whom they then mate in order to create eggs which lie in the sediment and then come up as new rotifers. So you see, we have all sorts of sexual identity mixed in this animal reproductive cycle. And this is just an example. It's just one of very many crazy ways how sexuality is organized in nature, or let's say in the living sphere. Just one thing to add on our own sexuality, and then I stop. And you know that humans have these two chromosomes, the sex chromosomes, X and Y. And it seems very easy. It seems that if you have an X and a Y, you're a male biologically, and if you have an X and an X, you're a female. But it's not at all that easy. It's actually, it doesn't say anything, let's say, what nominal sex distribution a body has. It also has to do with the way these chromosomes are translated through networks and cascades, and let's say conversations of a life path in order to show up as a particular sex. So this can be variable and very different. And we can say today, this is the latest empirical level. We can say that sex in humans is a spectrum. And you'll be surprised to know that every one of us carries cells of the other sex in our bodies. So you don't only have double X cells if you're a female, you also have X and Y cells if you're a female. So you have parts in yourself which are not what you could identify with if you do this. So it starts to be complicated already within our own body, because our bodies, the biological sex is not something which is decided and then executed. It is a sort of story to be told, where the little narratives of the body itself cross over with the narratives of relations to others and of culture and of politics. And all this is a story. And in this being a story, which is continuously reinterpreted, it is not different from the whole of ecology. The whole of ecology is a story in which identities are created and recreated and reinterpreted, always open to change and reinterpretation.